Well, OJ Simpson, one of the most infamous high-profile Americans of all time, is dead after a battle with cancer. The former NFL great who stood trial for the double murder of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend Ron Goldman in the 90s, only to be acquitted, passed away on Wednesday in Las Vegas at the age of 76. He was later found liable for the deaths in a separate civil case and then served 9 years in prison on unrelated charges. OJ had reportedly been battling prostate cancer, and his health took a turn for the worse as of late. A post from the Simpson family on Simpson's verified X account this morning shared this, and you can see the message here saying that he was surrounded by his children and grandchildren. Simpson's attorney also confirmed his death to TMZ. We want to bring in former NFL kicker Nick Lowery, who joins us live now to talk more about the news today. Nick, thanks so much for coming on.
You bet. It's one of those times in all our lives we can't forget. We were all there during the acquittal. We were watching the trial day by day, by month, and I was lucky enough to have had some connection with OJ and some perspective, perhaps.
Yeah, and we appreciate you joining us here to share more of that perspective here today. Obviously, this news is what everyone is talking about right now. And I want to ask you, too, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer rather recently, right? Were people widely aware of his health issues?
I don't think so. No, I think he had found some privacy to some degree was a pretty healthy thing, given all the controversy, the really unprecedented controversy surrounding his life and what happened with the double murder.
And obviously, his legal troubles continued on from the double murders. How would you describe his reputation and the perception of him from the NFL now and back then?
Well, let's just start with before. I mean, one of the greatest running backs of all time, my friend Joe DeLamolure, talked about the 2,000 yards that he achieved, which had never been done before with Buffalo. And his personality was charismatic. He had a lot of fun. I actually acted very briefly on a show on HBO with him called First and 10. He drove up in a white Bentley, and I had dinner with him with Marcus Allen and Marcus' wife at Houston's on the Plaza in 1994, just months before the murders happened. And OJ was, to a fault, upbeat, energetic, positive. I would suggest that CTE, something not enough people have talked about, may have played a role in his uncontrollable rage, which most of us, including myself, believe led to his decision, his planning of the murder itself. But most of the players, I think, in the NFL that met him have an ambivalent feeling because he usually treated them extremely well. And I think it shows that all of us, at some time in our lives, this does not explain it, but all of us have a beast in us and also an angel. And with CTE, it's very possible and very likely that one listens to and hears the monster in us. And he certainly, I think, and believe did. And it's a great tragedy in so many ways to the family of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman, who I believe they live in Arizona where I live. Ron Goldman's family. It will echo and traumatize them for the rest of their life.
Yeah, absolutely. Thinking of them today as well. And you're right, CTE is a very big health concern. A lot of people don't talk about it enough, especially when it comes to athletes and football players. I want to ask you, too, about the families of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. Have you seen any reaction from the families or heard anything at all?
No, I haven't. It's a continuing exclamation mark on the tragedy itself. He went through his own suffering, but Nicole Simpson and Ron Goldman's families have suffered for this for almost exactly 30 years. And you can't add up day by day, night by night, the loss and the sadness, the sense of disempowerment, the rage that comes from that as well.
Yeah, and going back in time too, I think one moment that really stands out to so many is when OJ led cops on a low-speed chase in his Ford Bronco on the LA freeways, a moment that was nationally televised and of course one of the most dramatic shared experiences in modern American history. Just how significant was this moment? What do you remember?
Well, I was on the phone with Rosie Greer, who I've known for many years, and we were talking about doing an event with him and Marcus Allen, and he has to break up the call because Rosie Greer, who was a pastor as well, was the only one that OJ would allow into his cell to visit him. And Rosie interrupted my conversation with him and said, "I got to go. OJ's on the run." And that was the day of the white Bronco chase. Many people interpreted that, most likely accurately, as some level of admission of guilt and certainly desperation. But it probably no other single event, especially because it was thanks to Lance Ito, which I don't agree with, was lengthened by months and months, made it much more difficult to get a conviction. But there's no event that really has tied us with racism, with the limitations of the justice system, with the confrontation of fame, with the realities of crime itself, that OJ could hire the best lawyers and have a chance simply because he had more money and a chance to get those people behind him. It brought all those things together. And I'll never forget, actually, a few years later in 1997, for whatever reason, Donald Trump had just purchased the Miss USA pageant, and I was one of the finalist judges. And he was late. Marla Maples, his then wife, was welcoming the judges, and he came in announcing that the civil verdict had come in guilty. So I don't know if OJ ever had to pay any of the damages for that, but one of the great saddest times really in our lives. It made us realize the injustice that some call the jury nullification that took place was a statement that many people believed in the racial side of it had happened and justified their verdict.
Yeah, you touch on a lot of really interesting points there, and especially today with the news of his passing, a lot of people are talking about the moment that he was acquitted. Obviously, it's one of those moments that everybody thinks about. Where was I? What was my reaction at the time? What do you remember about that moment in particular?
I actually did a show with Johnny Cochran. He did after that. What I remember about it is the shock. At the same time, it made all of us think, what is going on here that we did not know about? What are the currents, the strong psychological and group cultural currents that led to a verdict like this? And I'll repeat again, I think Lance Ito allowing cameras in the courtroom, but most importantly, not a 3-week trial, not a 1-month trial, but a 6-month trial, just eradicated any chance for any semblance of the details to become more important and for a just verdict to take place.
Yeah, and when he stood trial back then in the double murders, what was the perception amongst NFL players, people who had played with OJ before? Did people start to distance themselves from him? Did things remain unchanged?
Of course.
What did you notice?
Of course. And you know what? A lot of them, my friend Chris Hale, knew him personally, knew the nice things he did for his father. I mean, I get choked up. Isn't it funny that, horrible acts and a part of someone that reflects a monster betray someone that may have done very good things in their lives, but for one moment, in this case, it was a planned moment. So let's not minimize that as well. Insanity took place, and the worst kind of violent murder took place, not only for Nicole, but also for Ron Goldman. So it's hard when you have ambivalent feelings, having had dinner with him, having acted with him, having been treated well by him, having seen him do nice things for players' families, to not have some conflict in the emotions. But the truth is, it's very, very likely he was guilty. And we need to hold people accountable for the things they do in their lives, but also to make the attempt in the midst of media today, which tends to look at one dimension, to look at the 3 dimensions of a human being and see the sadness it represents as well.
Yeah, and Nick, I really appreciate you coming on today to share some of this personal perspective with us. You've already touched on several different stories that have stuck with you. Is there anything else that comes to mind that you'd like to share with our viewers?
I would say that remember someone, this is his day when he has passed. Remember also the many good things that he did for his teammates, but don't forget that in the end, he will be measured by a gruesome crime, and he deserved to be held accountable for that. He never admitted to it, and so there couldn't be a cleansing or a redemption, which is equally sad.
Former NFL great and kicker Nick Lowery joining us here with more on this news today of OJ Simpson's passing at the age of 76. Nick, thank you.
Thank you.